Seat Headrest is a moody DIY project led by Will Toledo. Birthing their debut music in 2010, the lo-fi and introspective project thrust itself into the greater indie scene. Seat Headrest continues to expand its boundaries with a refined production approach dominated by electronic instrumentation. You're tuned into Roots to Grooves.
Another movie that I didn't watch with you. Another movie and we're gonna have fun. The final terror is in your house somewhere, hiding in boxes behind closed doorways, out from the forest adjacent to your garage. I've seen its marks at the corner of your eyes. Nothing works. Nothing works for everyone. Good stories are bad lies. Good stories are bad lies. Take your hands off your neck and hold on to the ghost of my body. You know that good lies make bad stories. You can text me when punching mattresses get so. Don't think it'll always be this way. Not comforted by anything I say. We were rest before we crash into each other. Such a good idea if it turns you on. We have breakdowns and sometimes we don't have breakdowns. I wanna hear you going psycho if you're going psycho. I wanna hear every conversation just ends with you screaming. Not even words, just ah 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 ah. Into each other. Don't worry, you and me won't be alone no more. Don't worry, you and me won't be alone no more.
Didn't mean to interrupt, but we are too excited to be talking about car seat headrest. I'm Jesse, guys. What's up? Welcome in. Sitting across from me, as always, is Jay Purcell, founder of Signl Radio.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world right now, and wherever you may be, in a car, behind your desk, on the toilet. This is Rooster Grooves.
Yeah, you know it. When it's Jay and Jesse, it's Rooster Grooves. We're talking about car seat headrest, like I said. It was a cool opening song, very good track.
Yeah.
This is my choice for the week. It's an indie rock band. I guess let me go to my notes before. William Toledo, or William Barnes.
Right.
Is the lead singer.
Yeah.
It's a band. There's been a couple different people in the band. But let me just talk about the music first. It's like indie rock. It's low fidelity, lo-fi, indie. How would you describe it from an outside perspective? You didn't know who this was before we brought it up this week.
No, I didn't. And we'll talk about it as we go on. He's a very prolific guy. But on Spotify, the first album that I listened to in its entirety was the original version of Twin Fantasy, because there's two versions of it out there, but I heard the original version, which is on Spotify, and I listened to it in its entirety, and I got a lot of like sort of Strokes vibes from some of the tracks on there through the vocals, and yeah, it's like lo-fi grittiness, some like distorted sort of production on every instrument kind of thing.
Yeah, totally some like kind of Julian Casablancas.
Yeah.
Like singing, spoken word, yelling, growling.
Kinda, yeah.
And also some like Lou Reed.
Yeah.
Where Julian got it from.
That sort of New York kind of sound.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah, that's the vibe I got from that first album. And then I skipped the rest of the discography and went to listen to the most recent release, Making a Door Less Open. That was the last album that came out. And that's very different. There's a lot more like electronic elements on that. Still with like the indie rock sensibilities. Like the first few tracks are more electronic, then it gets a little bit more rock, and then it sort of interweaves between electronic and so that was like, it's always interesting to see a band that has a large discography to listen to their very first thing and then their most recent thing. Yeah. And like kind of like, is it the same? Is it different? Like it was definitely different, but it was still had a similar sound, so you could tell this artist has a definite fingerprint on their sound or aesthetic or whatever.
I think what William does really well in Car Seat Headrest is use his influences and like the feel and the vibe of the influences, but it doesn't translate like to the actual instruments being played or like the parts. Okay. It doesn't sound like the influence he's getting it, but he's not
directly, but overall vibe-wise kind of thing.
Right, like how it makes you feel and how he's putting that into his music. Yeah. And that's how he's able to create something that sounds unique and connects with a lot of people. Yeah, so like you said, prolific. He has a bunch of albums out. He's done a lot of it himself. Total DIY guy. Starting, and we'll get into it, but starting in his room, recording stuff. He's doing the drums, bass, guitar, vocals, creating it all on his own. And like I said, we'll get into it, but he's released a lot of music and just really built this career out of nothing. Totally DIY, so very respectable. They've done KEXP. They've done
Late Show, right?
With Jimmy Fallon.
Or was it Jimmy Fallon?
Yeah, it was Jimmy Fallon. I think.
Okay. Yeah, one of the Late
Tonight
shows.
Show.
I think it was Jimmy Fallon, because I think I saw a clip of Jimmy Fallon doing the, when he hold up the album as you're introducing the artist.
Oh yeah, right.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Finalized. Jimmy Fallon. Where else? I'm sorry, I didn't pull up my notes at the right times or whatever.
A lot of big music festivals as well. I've seen clips of them playing on massive festival stages.
And like you said, Twin Fantasy, that was kind of the album that thrust them into the critical acclaim limelight. Across the world, I guess. Their influences, I got some influences like Radiohead, Modest Mouse, REM, Animal Collective, Beatles, Monkees, Beach Boys, Leonard Cohen, who I'm not as familiar with.
I'm a little bit, but not a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm even less.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Have you heard at least one Leonard Cohen track, maybe? Have you heard of his name before?
I've heard of the name, and I may have listened to the song or a song, but I don't.
He's kind of a little bit. I would describe his voice as sullen.
Sullen, like sad.
little bit, yeah. It's kind of like it's kind of a little bit like Nick Cave, but less dramatic.
Okay.
I think something like that. I don't know.
Cool.
Leonard Cohen fans, please write in and correct us on your description.
We'll do an episode on him
just
next
from memory. I haven't listened to a Leonard Cohen track from a long time.
This is not the Leonard Cohen episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're talking about Car Seat Headrest.
Yeah.
So cool indie rock, soulful crooner, indie rock guy, DIY guy.
Yeah.
And it's impressive. The reason I brought it up today and why I like this band is because I like a lot of this stuff and I dislike a lot of this stuff too.
Interesting.
And that's what kind of drives my wonder and the mysteriousness of this band for me.
Okay.
There's some stuff that's really good. This opening track that we played was very good. Yeah. You can hear the intricacies of the production, like the chord changes and the song structure moving through as we go through the song.
And that was called Sober to Death from the Twin Fantasy. Well, the work version we played was off of the new Twin Fantasy album 2018. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's probably like an accessible song from Car Seat Headrest.
Totally.
In terms of song structure and production quality and stuff like that. But
exactly. So riffing off what you just said, a lot of the stuff is more low fidelity, recorded worse. It's rough to listen to a little bit. Yeah. And it's difficult to listen to. This band has 15-minute songs. Yeah. You know, like a 6-minute song is like a short song. Yeah. For them. So they're really, I like that they're not scared to just really get into it and jam out and play and get their energy in there. Yeah, yeah. Whether you like it or not, I'm proud of these guys for doing whatever they want.
And so when you sent me this, I thought maybe you sent it to me because of the Seattle connection.
Oh, yeah.
Not at all? No. That was just like, you realized that afterwards or something?
That was a side thing, yeah.
So we forgot to say they're based right now in Seattle, which is crazy.
Is this the first band we've talked about that's based in Seattle?
Yeah, yeah.
Because Signl Radio's based in Seattle.
And I saw they did this, there's a 15-minute like Tidal documentary on this band, Tidal, the music streaming platform. Right. There's a 15-minute video, shows them rehearsing in Crybaby Studios, which I think you've rehearsed that or been to. I've been there as well.
I totally didn't realize that's where they were.
Yeah, yeah. And they got this big room down there. Because Crybaby Studios, if people don't know, it's like this underground, subterranean music rehearsal space in Capitol Hill neighborhood. Lots of graffiti everywhere on all the doors. A lot of the bands share tiny room. I've been in a tiny room. And also when I've been there, I've heard other bands playing. Like, I don't know how you can like record or do stuff when you can hear other people playing at the same time.
It's not ideal.
It's not ideal. But they were, I don't know if they still have the space, but at one point, Car Seat Headrest were rehearsing down there. Yeah. So,
and I did see that. I did see the Tidal documentary, like three-part on YouTube. Yeah, yeah. I didn't recognize Crybaby Studios though when I was watching.
I recognized the iconic door because the opening shot of that shows the stairs and the door, and I took the exact same photo of that like years ago and put it on my Instagram. So
this is kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah.
We almost have a little bit of a connection.
Yeah.
No, a little bit of closeness to this band, just proximity-wise.
Yeah.
So that's very cool.
Yeah.
But we are talking about Car Seat Headrest, indie rock band, DIY. Let's play another track so we can get the listeners to get a vibe.
And this is the track you first heard of them via, right?
So this is called Drunk Drivers / Orca Whales.
Killer Whales.
Killer Whales. And so it's a little bit of a long one at 6 minutes, so hang in there with us. And this is what I was introduced to, Car Seat Headrest, and it was on a playlist or something, and it caught my attention. And I went back to it, and it's one of the songs I simultaneously like it and kind of dislike it, but that's what draws me to it either way.
All right.
Let's give it a listen. Let me know what you think.
In the backseat of my heart, my love tells me I'm a mess. I couldn't get the car to start. I left my keys somewhere in the mess. It comes and goes in plateaus. 1 month later, I'm a fucking pro. My parents would be proud. Or fall asleep on the floor. a proud race. It's not a race at all. We're just trying. I'm only trying to get home. Drunk drivers, drunk drivers. This is not a good thing. I don't mean to rationalize or try and explain it away. It's not okay. Drunk drivers, drunk drivers. It's too late to articulate it. An empty feeling. You share the same fate as the people you hate. You built yourself up against others' feelings, and it left you feeling empty as a car coasting downhill. I had become such a negative person. It was all just an act. It was all so easily stripped away. But if we learn how to live like this, maybe we can learn how to start again. Like a child who's never done wrong, who hasn't taken that first step. We are not a proud race. It's not a race at all. We're just trying. I'm only trying to get home. Drunk drivers, drunk drivers. Put it out of your mind. Perish the thought. There's no comfort in responsibility. Drunk drivers, drunk drivers. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Kill the whales, kill the whales. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Kill the whales, kill the whales. Use that voice in your head, giving you shit again. But you know he loves you, and he doesn't mean to cause you pain. Please listen to him. It's not too late. Turn off the engine, get out of the car and start to walk. Drunk drivers, drunk drivers, drunk drivers, drunk drivers. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Kill the whales, kill the whales. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Kill the whales, kill the whales.
are tuned in to Roots to Grooves with myself, Jay, and Jesse over here. And that was Drunk Drivers / Killer Whales by Seat Headrest, the artist we're talking about today. And you said that was kind of a love-hate song for you? Yeah. But why? Explain more.
Just the length, I guess.
Really? It's only 6 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't listen to this song. I already knew this song prior to this research week. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So I didn't really listen to it this week. Yeah. Because I had a preconceived notion of how I felt. Okay. And I don't know. Listening to it back now, it didn't sound as bad as I made it up to be in my head. But what I said still, I still vibe with that. Like some of the stuff that these guys come out with is rough for me to listen to. Yeah. And some of it's like the word wanking. Okay. You know, like when there's a guitar solo and I don't know, another artist or somebody in our research at one time called it wanking, like just solos or just doing stuff for the sake of doing it. Yeah. And I feel like there's a little bit of that in some of the songs, but I'm just not coming from a jam band type of place in music. Yeah. And I know that's a place where a lot of people really like to be. Well, so I don't want to like yuck anybody's yum. I'm just saying for me, sometimes it's a little bit too indulgent in that. Okay. You know, like.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of insight from Will Toledo himself.
Oh, there you go.
This is a little bit out of order that we normally do things because this is Teens of Denial album, which is a little bit further on in his discography. Before this album, he did a almost over 2 hour long album called Nervous Young Man, which he thought people found it hard to listen to because it was so long, the length thing that you mentioned. But he basically said about this album, Teens of Denial, on a personal level, I kind of disliked it because a lot of the songs were more interested in songcraft than emotional engagement. I felt like I couldn't engage with it as soon as the album was done. I struggled to make every song a deep reflection of myself and something I can connect to intimately. But that took a long time to come into shape. And even though I know what I wanted to do, usually knowing what you want to do does take longer to come into shape because you have to reject more material. Mm-hmm. I hope I read that correctly. A little bit disjointed flow. But so he was not really happy with
that's very interesting.
So, I mean, I think maybe you're kind of sensing that as well because, and this is something we'll talk about, I guess, but he's sort of shifted from songcraft to like focusing more on the emotional authenticity sort of thing. Right. And so this track was not really, in his own eyes, emotionally authentic. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, so I mean, very interesting. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm picking up on exactly what he was saying. Yeah. It's, mutually exclusive ideas, I suppose. Yeah. Coincidentally matching up. But it just, their music exists and it's out there and it's for anybody to experience and everyone has a different perspective. So we're talking about them today because I think it's worthwhile to listen to. Yeah. Because I believe like art just makes you feel something. Good art makes you feel something, even if it makes you feel bad. Right. That's good art. Yeah. Like you see people, like I hate that actor that plays that bad guy on that TV show. Mm-hmm. Like, he's the worst. Like that was great acting. He did a great job. Yeah. And to make people feel like they don't like you, even in the real world. Right. You know? Yeah, yeah. And people harbor that and I don't know. It's inappropriate to treat somebody like that who's an actor. Yeah, yeah. But I'm just saying that's a human thing that people feel and they retain that when it's such a visceral experience. Yeah, yeah. And then they can take that to another experience. So
sure. Yeah.
So anyway, and I guess piggybacking off what you said real quick, I think he is into the emotional side of the music and he starts with the lyrics a lot of the time and then writes the music around that. So he's almost like a poet and then putting music to his poetry rather than a lot of artists we see making beats and stuff and putting vocals on last. Yeah. So I think that's another cool aspect of his writing concept.
Now, but I think earlier it was a little different. But so let's talk about his early years a little bit.
Well, let's get on back. Let's take a flight to the East Coast. We're going to Virginia. Where in Virginia should we land?
Leesburg.
All right. There better be a good airport there. Never been to Virginia.
Never been there. They have a nice little town vibe in this photo here. I'll show you this.
We're going on a field trip.
Yeah, it's on the screen as well.
It looks quaint.
Sorry, audio viewers, by the way. you can always go to youtube.com/SIGNL to watch the videos if you would
Maybe
like
we
to.
should start to edit out this this portion for the audio folks.
Nah, it takes too much time. I only got a certain amount of hours to edit this.
Check out the YouTube. Check out the YouTube. It's on there for you guys. We appreciate you all.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Oh, it looks like a nice, quaint town. Looks like
It
a
does.
nice Sunday morning, beautiful day.
Yeah.
Kind of small town vibes.
It was built in 1740s. It's got some history. It's like a very quaint, sort of old American town in Virginia.
Cool.
That's where he grew up, and I think he went to high school around there as well, right?
Yeah, I think he was in a nuclear family, had a mom and dad, and they had like some tight quarters is the vibe that I got.
Small house.
Small house. Yeah. And that's kind of where our story starts as far as music writing goes.
Yeah.
So Will Quick. Joke. He goes by Will Toledo.
Yeah.
But his real name is William Barnes.
Okay.
So I think I just wanted to make that clear.
Do we know where the Toledo thing came in?
I don't. No, I'm kicking myself because I don't know that.
Yeah.
We'll look it up on the next music break.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, yeah, close quarters in his family. I don't know how musical his family was, but I didn't hear any information about his parents being musical or very influential as far as music goes.
Not so much, although it did sound like they had a lot of books in the house that were all about like music biographies and stuff like that. But he said the curious thing about that is that like I don't know if it was his parents that did this, but his sister did some of it, is censoring certain things and all these books and albums, like words and like pictures. Like there's a John Lennon album cover or something like that that his sister had censored or whatever and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Like covering.
Like covering like swear words, cuss words, bad things. So he had like, it seemed like they had all this stuff in their house, but it was censored for some reason, which is, maybe it was his sister just being weird. I don't know. It sounds very strange. I don't have too much information on it.
We'll just leave it at that. We're just here to observe and learn.
Yeah. And it sounded like that he described his sort of younger years, Will, as sort of isolated and didn't really get along with other people of his own age at school. So he spent a lot of time by himself. But the way he sort of said this is like, he dove into music. Like he spent a lot of his time in isolation working on his music. And he says he kind of feels like he probably, because he did that, he was like further ahead than most people that would start music, because he kind of was in his high school years and just spending hours and hours, like, trying to write music. He said he was very like sort of studying other artists that he liked. They Might Be Giants, I think, was a group that he mentioned. I've heard the name. I don't really know too much about them. But
somewhat legendary, I think. Yeah. But I've never dove on in to see what they're about.
They Might Be Giants. I don't know.
We don't know.
But he said he basically would like listen to like that band and a lot of other groups and just starting studying the music and trying to like figure out his own way of interpreting those songs and or coming up with his own things based on the sort of chord progressions he was hearing and stuff like that.
Right.
So it seemed like basically like most of his like teenage years and that he was just really in his own world doing this whole music thing. And
to go off that, I know in junior high and in high school he was playing in a student symphony band. Okay. And so that's where he got a little bit of music theory knowledge to propel him as a foundational education.
Yeah. And so
as far as I know, he started writing songs on his computer in his room.
Yeah, I think that was the other thing he said, because I think he was like, a lot of the music he was listening to were bands and stuff like that, but he didn't really have band members to play with, but he had his computer. And so he always saw the music he was making a bit differently. I think he even said a lot of his original material was more like loop based. Like he mentioned, like it's almost like hip hop sensibility, even though his music doesn't have any of that sort of beaty sound or anything like that. Like not in that kind of genre. I don't feel like at least. But from a computer perspective, he was doing it more like from a loop kind of sort of approach. So like, yeah, I mean, so it's kind of funny that his music sounds indie rock, sounds like a band, like even some of the earlier stuff.
Right.
Considering he's just basically a bedroom producer.
Yeah.
Like,
and gives it a very band feel.
Yeah.
Very indie rock.
Yeah.
I don't know what the DAW he was using or the specific equipment, but I think he had like a built-in microphone software type thing. It was like like a recording bundle package.
Microsoft Audio Recorder or something like that.
Okay.
Or something like that on his, I guess, a PC. Yeah.
I'm guessing. I don't know the specifics. I wish I did. That's the information I was able to find. But yeah, like you said, loop. Loop is the word. Loop-based improv.
Yeah.
You know, and then kind of putting things together, and that's how that first Twin Fantasy album was made.
Yeah, and go ahead.
No, just before we get too far, I guess. I think he graduates high school, and that's when he starts like pumping out music. And so he built like 5 albums.
Yeah,
they were all called respectively 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Like 1 was the album number, 2 was the album number.
Yeah.
Or name. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So they all came out in 2010. I think he just graduated high school. I think he pumped all those out and posted them on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the, I don't know, the genesis to his project. And I know Car Seat Headrest was a side project. He had another project. Do you know what it was called? I can't remember.
Oh no, I don't. I didn't see anything about this.
But he was doing a couple. It was like Car Seat Headrest. Let me just calm down.
Calm down.
Jeez Louise. Okay, we'll edit this part out. He had another project, and I can't remember the name, but Car Seat Headrest started as a side project for him and just ended up being this big creation.
Right.
And he started pumping out a lot of music and eventually formed a band, and we know that's why we're talking about them today.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was just sort of being prolific, and I think he sort of thought about Pink Floyd as like another inspiration of his, and throughout Car Seat Headrest's discography, you'll see there are certain really long tracks, like 16 minutes, 15 minutes, like on different albums. And the way he sort of described that was basically that Pink Floyd's an inspiration to him, and he said what he learned from them is how that they have so much conviction in their own musicality and artistry that basically when they create the music, they're kind of like seeing where the song goes. Like they're not thinking about like how long it should be. They're thinking about like, you know, the music that they're making and
where the energy is.
Yeah, and the next part. It's kind of like the story. It's like, you know, where should it flow next? Is it ready to end, or should it like carry on? Like, and just kind of getting out of your head and trying to sort of go with the vibe of that song, sort of thing. And that's something he really like mentioned, and that's something he like internalized really early on, I think, with this stuff, which is not only why he has the long albums, but why he has like so many albums, like before like officially being signed and anything like that, because he was basically just pumping out songs and putting them out and releasing them on Bandcamp, and like I mean, it's crazy. Like I don't know, I think like maybe a lot of people probably make the same amount of music as him, but don't release it.
To go off that, maybe he shouldn't have released these first 5 albums, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a diss, a little bit of a joke, but because I think it's great.
But don't you think it's sort of played into him being the sort of level of success he has now and the label? Do you think that would have happened if he hadn't?
No, 100%. That's again, this band tears me in two.
Okay. Yeah.
And I have these different perspectives on, you know, like, well,
he's a polarizing artist.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's a value to talk about and learn about this guy.
Yeah.
Even if 100% of his discography like really turns me on musically.
Right.
So that's why we're talking about him. It's really cool. So maybe he shouldn't have released those albums, but he did. And I think that is a huge value to his career.
Yeah.
Because he had that resume out there in public.
Yeah.
And people could see his growth.
Yeah.
And see where he came from, and seeing just that he's able to put in a lot of work and pump out music.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the other thing he said about this himself is that he values and respects, like, not just musicians, but film directors, that you can see the progression of their not just career, but their art talent over the years through the stuff that they've released. And I think he said that's the reason I think he pulled one album that was on Bandcamp. I'm not sure why, copyright maybe or something like that. But the rest of them are up there. And he said the reason he left them up there is because he didn't want to hide anything. Because he's progressed now as an artist, and he kind of wants people to know, like, oh, there was all this stuff that came before, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe some of it's not good. Like, and I think he knows that himself. I don't think he's the last person to say all of his stuff's great. I think he'll actually acknowledge like a lot of his earlier stuff wasn't good, but.
And I'll kind of interject with some of our creative mindset portion of what we like to talk about in here, because one of the things that he did say is that he likes to, or the way that he thinks about music is like it's not finished, like, or art in general, it's never finished. And so, you know, he re-released this album,
Twin Fantasies,
not just re-released, but re-recorded everything, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later. But I just really like how he respects the art and even respects his own bad art. Yeah, that it should be part of the story. Yeah, and all of this is part of his narrative, and he puts narrative like as a concept into his music. Yeah, like with Twin Fantasy being like a concept album. Yeah, and then having these really long songs. How you're talking about where's the song going to go? Yeah, how should it end? Should it end? Yeah. So I like how this guy's putting cool concepts, philosophies, and narratives into music. Yeah. To communicate emotions and try to figure himself out. Right. Yeah. So he's a very artful guy and thinks about it in an artful way, and he respects the art and the process. Yeah. I think that's cool.
Well, I feel like we should play a song maybe off of Twin Fantasy, although it was like out of not the order I had, or should I just play the track I had lined up anyway?
No, let's switch it up, because I feel like we're on a Twin Fantasy vibe. Okay. This came out in November 2011. Yeah. Like I said, it's kind of a concept album and was influenced, like you said, by Pink Floyd. Yeah. And I think it was about a relationship that he was going through. Yeah. So, I don't know. Well, let's listen to it and we'll talk about it.
Well, since we're talking about long tracks, this track is called Famous Prophets, stars in brackets. It's a 16-minute long track, but we'll play a bit of it and then come back.
We'll play a clip.
Yeah.
Apologies to future me's and you's, but I can't help feeling like we're through. The ripping of the tape hurts my ears. In my years, I've never seen anyone quit quite like you do. Twin bruises on my shins from where I kicked the back of the seat in. They meant what I went through for you, but now they're fading, now they're gone. Yours again. But I remember you. You had a body. You had hands and arms and legs and etc. just the start of everything. Time flies, all you gone. I'm not gonna end up a nervous wreck like the people I know who are nervous wrecks. Though I'm not gonna name names, yours was an exception. Did the sound just stop? At the end of every day, there'll be nothing left to say. There'll be no backstage pass. We gotta go back. 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 We gotta go
waiting for it to take a turn. I was like, it's keeping my interest.
It was pretty good.
I was like, this is the moment where it's like venturing into the getting to be 16 minutes long.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we're going in deep here.
It's good though. Famous Prophets from the 2018 version of Twin Fantasy from Seat Headrest here on Rooster Grooves. Yeah, so the thing about this album is there are two versions of it. There was one that he did in 2011 by himself.
Mm-hmm. But the track you played was off the 2018?
That version, yeah, it was off the 2018 version. And the differences that I've heard some people say is basically it wasn't just re-performing the songs with a much better production quality, but I think he also like tweaked like the compositions and the lyrics a little bit. Maybe
there's some updates made.
Yeah, basically, because it's like the thing we were talking about before we play that track was like, should he or shouldn't he have released all of this stuff on Bandcamp, you know? But throughout his career, he's like recycled songs or recycled parts of songs, like the hooks, lyrics. He makes like references in his new lyrics to older lyrics, and it's all sort of part of it. Like some people said it's kind of Easter eggs for like his fans or whatever. It's like, oh, he did this back then. But I think for him personally, like, you know, I think he's very aware of his evolution as an artist.
Yeah.
And how he's getting better and how he's learning more and how he how he in a certain way wants to revisit these old ideas that he did previously. But it's like, well, now I know, because you said earlier, like, art's never finished. He never sees anything as finished.
Yeah.
So like now with like your new hindsight, you can go back to this old track you wrote and like make it better. Like, I don't know too many people that do that, but or anyone like artist wise, but like
I feel like most artists kind of subscribe to the way of thought of like put your thing out and then don't touch it ever again.
And that's
like,
it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's whatever you want to do.
Yeah, again, that's why it's your material. You wrote it.
There's nothing wrong with re-recording something or re-releasing it.
No.
Do whatever you want, and that's why I like that he's doing whatever he wants.
Because I've heard most artists will, you know, like a track they've released now, they might have written 10 years ago or more.
Yeah.
But they didn't like, they were like, oh, it was kind of good, but I didn't really figure it out how to finish writing it or whatever. And then they'll figure it out later and put it on an album. But with Mr. Toledo here, he's like really already released it way back in the day, and now he's like, here it is again.
I think it is a cool thing to do, though. I think when you look at his discography from an outside perspective, once everything's released, especially when maybe he's done with his career, it like there are Easter eggs, and you can kind of put these little things together, and it makes his whole presence for his music kind of more engaging. There's a lot to little things to put together, Easter eggs, like he said. But it's a narrative, and you can see the progression and see the narrative of the process moving forward. So I think it's a cool thing to do, even though I might not do that with my music. I don't know if everyone do whatever you want, and it's all good. That's all I have to say.
I mean, so he did all of this Bandcamp stuff through after he graduated high school. He went to college, university. I think he changed universities. He didn't have a good time at the first place he went to. I don't know the details other than that. But he did eventually get signed to Matador in 2015. And so he did, like, I guess Twin Fantasy, the first version, 2011, was probably his first maybe real-ish album after all of his Bandcamp stuff.
That's what I'm saying. Was why Twin Fantasy is significant. Right.
And then he followed that up the year later with Monomania, which do you know Monomania is a real saying?
It's a word. I think I had looked it up. Do you know it?
Yeah, I think it's basically to be like enthusiastically obsessive about one thing. My God, now I can't do the words. Enthusiastically obsessive about one thing.
Okay.
Yeah, Monomania.
Nice. Bring the vocab game to the table.
Yeah. And then he did...
So, and the only thing I have on Monomania real quick is that Twin Fantasy was like a being in a relationship album, and then Monomania was kind of the other side of that, and it was more of a breakup album after that relationship.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Narrative.
Again.
Coming into play here, yeah.
Exactly.
He did a few other things, but The Nervous Young Man was like his album before he got signed to Matador, and that was the over 2 hour long album. And then so he does Teens of Style, which is his first signed thing. But again, it's about recycle, because I think a lot of the songs on that track, I don't know if he re-recorded them, but I think he might have re-recorded them.
I think same thing, kind of re-recorded, a little bit of updates.
So it's like a compilation of like select tracks that he'd released throughout all those different albums up until that point. And that was his first Matador release. And then, Teens of Denial was like the one that people didn't like so much. And then he redid Twin Fantasy. So it's taken a while like to actually like come back and to do like original albums for Matador, I think it seems like.
Right, real quick, I'm not sure if I got something wrong, but I thought Teens of Denial was the one that people do like.
Oh, well,
there was...
He's not so fond of it.
There's Teens of Style.
Teens of Style, yeah.
And then Teens of Denial, I think, had some pretty good like critical acclaim.
I think, though, like, some of the things about that were, like, people said the lyrics were really dark and cynical or something on that album.
Right.
Which is what some people don't like about it. But then this one reviewer was like, well, I think a lot of maybe their fans are of that same mindset anyway. Yeah. So, the Seattle /jurist type indie rock music. So
I don't know if it was the same interview you were talking about, but I think an interview, somebody had made a comment like, I'm not sure about the mental health state of the audience of this band.
Right, yeah. So, whoa,
like, okay. Anecdotal.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I thought everyone says this album's good, Teens of Denial, regardless of what Will says about it.
Right.
But I think this was the album that got him on Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
They got Tiny Desk.
Yeah.
And they were on KEXP here in Seattle.
Right. Yeah.
So pretty significant jump for them as far as, acclaim in the industry.
Yeah.
So they're doing good.
And so I guess the thing we forgot to say at a certain point, he was still in Virginia after he left university, and he started to continue to release and write this stuff, and that's where the name came from, right? Car seat headrest.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. Yeah. We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, Jay. Cool. Yeah,
I like it. So name is car seat headrest. He's in his room. We're kind of jumping back to the beginning of the story a little bit.
Just because I forgot.
Yeah,
jumping back a little bit. Yeah.
This is how we do it. We're just all mixed up. We don't know what we're doing.
Also, this leads into the Seattle connection a little bit later on. But
no, so we do know what we're doing.
We do. Yeah, we have. We have a structure.
Yeah, we have a format. We planned this. So car seat headrest. He's in like his little home studio. He's making music, and it's tight quarters. And so his family, he knows they can hear everything that he's doing, like music, singing, lyrics. Oh. And he's kind of like I think you mentioned he's a little bit of a shy person, a little maybe probably introverted, maybe a little bit. I don't want to judge without knowing, but I don't think he didn't want. It's kind of a vulnerable thing when you're doing vocals, especially, it seems like, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's a very personal thing, and you're saying things in lyrics, and it's like poetry. Yeah. And not everyone's comfortable with everybody hearing that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how he felt, is what I understand. So he was like, he wanted to find somewhere else to go to record these vocals. Yeah. A great spot is a car.
Right.
So he went into his car in the driveway.
Yeah.
A car is like low-key it's like a vocal booth.
Yeah, yeah.
It's padded with soft materials, angled. It's actually low-key maybe a good place to record vocals.
Yeah.
If anyone's out there looking for a little studio.
Yeah, just do it in your car.
Yeah, get in the back of the SUV or whatever. Yeah. But anyway, inside the car, he was in the back seat, and so straight ahead of him is a car seat headrest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the end of the story right there.
That's it. That's where the name came from.
A lot of build-up for a minimal payoff at the end.
But yeah, I mean, the thing to say though is like, yeah, he was doing all this by himself, and then like after he left university, he moved to Seattle, and he basically just put an ad in Craigslist, and that's how he got the other two band members that joined him to form his first live band and his first ability to like play these songs out live and go on tour. I think like he might have already had the Matador deal or been close to getting it at that point as well. Because when those guys joined, then they all went on tour, and that's like the other part of the story, right? For all of these artists, is going on tour and doing all that, kind of thing.
And real quick, I think it's kind of funny because I think around 2010, 2011, I had moved to Seattle, and I think I put a musician like search on Craigslist for myself. I was like, hey, I'm trying to play. I don't know. Well, I did. I responded to some people.
Okay.
And people were hitting me up a little bit. I never hooked up with anybody seriously.
Right. Yeah.
But I wonder if I scrolled past Will Toledo's message somewhere in there.
You could have been in car seat headrest, man.
I could have been. Yeah. I don't know. Do I want to? I don't know. I love it. I love it. Anyway.
But yeah, that was his first two band members, and there's been a lot of people that have come and gone since then, because he still writes all of the music himself. He did stop producing, I think, at a certain point, and has had other people produce the albums, and a lot of the touring. So they're like mostly touring members, but I think they're maybe like part of the band now, the other musicians.
I think two or three of them got kind of officially added.
Right. Yeah.
In the last couple of years or so.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And yeah, I mean, they're a really good band. Like if you ever see any clips online from different years, even with the different lineups, they seem to like have a really solid live sound happening.
Yeah.
The NPR clip I saw was really funny because all the band members were just sitting on the floor with no instruments, listening to him like wail on an acoustic guitar.
Yeah. Didn't the drummer have like a little mini drum set or something weird?
I didn't see the entire performance. I just saw one short clip of it. So I don't know what the full performance is like, and it was a little bit abrasive. Like he was just basically going like on the guitar and all that.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. I don't know.
I
don't know if this is good or not. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. That's the point of why I wanted to bring this up.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how I feel when I listen to this band. Like, is this good? Like that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think if you're listening to something and you're asking yourself if it's good, I think it's good enough to listen to, and it's good enough to make you question it.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, I meant to mention this earlier about love-hate songs. There's this song that I like to listen to, but I hate it at the same time. I think it's called Passion Fruit by Drake.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing some work once, and a part of this project, these people had put this playlist together, and that was on there. And I was like listening to it, and I was just like, this is a really weird track. I was like, I kind of like it, but I don't like it at the same time.
I don't fully like it.
I don't fully like it, yeah. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there. But
it's a weird thing. I think it's cool.
But I think like for the most part, I like what Car Seat Headrest are doing.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard the rawest shit, the raw.
The rawest. That's a hard word for even for an English accent.
Yeah, the rough early stuff I haven't.
The roughest.
I haven't heard a lot of that, but I definitely think the first Twin Fantasy version was pretty good. The second version is more like stadium rock produced, kind of in a way, like, which is not bad. It's just different than the first version. Like,
yeah, and that's kind of where we're at in the narrative. So they come out with Twin Fantasy, re-recorded everything with some updates to the structure and musicality, music itself. Yeah, and I don't know. I think this record is also seen as a very good record. Mm-hmm. Like it's a step up from the original Twin Fantasy. Yeah, most people would say just the production. It just depends on what you like. Obviously, some people like that really, really low fidelity, rough, real sound. Yeah. You know, but it's cool that he put both out there. So if you like the more raw one, you got it. If you like the more polished one, you got it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even realize they were this. I mean, on first listen, because it was the first time I heard the songs, I didn't correlate the two. Right. But like, but I definitely like the first version because that's where I got the Strokes vibes from, like the first version of it. But
no doubt they were. There's certainly some influence in there somewhere.
Yeah, I also hear a lot of Beck in his voice. Okay, reminds me of Beck. I can hear that. And a little bit of Radiohead in some of their songs as well.
Radiohead's definitely an influence.
Yeah. I was hearing that on this track as well, Hymns, that I picked from their most recent album. It says remix, which is strange. Like, did he remix it himself and put it on the album? Like,
I think in this kind of music, a remix means like rewrote.
Okay.
Rehashed out. Like some parts mostly the same, but a little bit different.
Well, can we spin it a little bit? Because this really reminds me of like Kid A little bit. Yeah. In some ways.
What is this? What track is this? From where?
It's called Hymn. It's called Hymn Remix, and it's off of the most recent album, Making a Door Less Open.
Nice.
Him remix from Car Seat Headrest. Tom York vibes.
I mean, you can hear it in the vocals.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Like it sounds like almost a similar tonality.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's, maybe he's trying to sound like that a little bit. I don't know, but generally the track sounds very cool.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
From their early stuff.
Yeah.
The sounds, it's obviously more synthy stuff and processed stuff.
Yeah.
But the weirdness is still in there.
Yeah.
Like he still brings that oddball energy in there. And I don't want to use words like weird or odd. I'm using those words in a good way. Creative, I should say.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's cool to see the progression. This album is quite different. It's electronic. There's a lot more ambient sounds, synthy, ambient noise.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a different vibe, but same vibe.
Yeah.
So I like that stuff.
Different approach. I think he was messing around in Ableton.
Okay.
And doing a lot of more of that type of stuff. I don't know what this whole like mask situation is that he's like going around with. I don't know if you saw this, like his.
Well, like on the Spotify, he's wearing like a gas mask or something.
Yeah, it's a gas mask with like lights in the eyes holes, and he seems to be wearing it in a lot of these videos in the promo for this album and stuff like that. So I don't know.
I mean, he's trying something new.
Yeah.
He's gonna be like Daft Punk next.
Exactly. Maybe he is Daft. No, I think
it's
so.
always been
He's
Will.
always been
Will Toledo.
Back when he was like 5 years old. Yeah.
I mean, Daft Punk. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So I mean, what year did that come out? This just came out.
2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I just feel like we're still in 2020, so that's why it feels like it just happened.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. Damn.
So, but
time.
Basically, that's all I got on Car Seat Headrest.
Yeah, they're definitely polarizing to some people. It's like acquired listening. It's interesting. I think.
Yeah, it's just not easy listening. It's not like easy jazz.
No.
That you're gonna hear while you're shopping at Macy's or in the elevator.
No.
They
are like some tracks that are maybe close to that, like the one we opened with, Sober to Death.
Yeah.
But like for the most part, basically this reviewer that's on their Wikipedia said it probably the most accurate way, described them as moody and introspective lo-fi pop tunes that are melodic but structurally ambitious at once.
Yeah.
I guess that's a positive way of saying it, structurally ambitious.
Structurally, I love that. We have to steal that.
No, you're just not getting the song, man. It's just structurally ambitious. That's all. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, because you heard it in that one track as well, that we started to play that long 15-minute track from Twin Fantasy. There was a moment in there where it had a guitar line and it just sounded like they just pressed mute on the, like, harsh, abruptly, just like muted it. Like, and that was it. It's like, there's lots of interesting things like that. So if you like that kind of thing, or you just get into his world, and I think this is why it's good to go back to like listen to albums, especially for this artist. Like if you can follow the album, dive into each album from beginning to end, you're gonna get some interesting journey out of it. I think. Right?
It's much. Even though every one of his albums is not really a concept album, by definition, he is putting concepts of his philosophies and narrative into this music, and that's really what the crux of like the uniqueness of what he's doing. Yeah. And it comes across. I think you're gonna get more out of this if you listen to the full albums. He's not making really good pop songs that just give everything you need in there, and it's nice, wrapped up, presentable. A lot of the stuff, there's just oddball, like guitar stuff is just left in, like little mistakes or little quirky parts are still left in there. Stuff sounds like it just cuts out sometimes, comes back in. It's oddball, but it's very good, and it's unique all the way through. So it's a high value listen. If you could bear it all, but some of it is difficult to listen to. But look at it as a challenge. See it as a challenge.
Which kind of makes his band name a little bit more ironic now, right? Car Seat Headrest.
Yeah, like, you're gonna need a headrest after you listen to this.
Well, good episode. There were some interesting things in here. I also like the fact that he like does a little bit of that experimentation. And I think one thing I read about, I forgot to say, was just about how in his earlier music, he was doing more of like kind of like more concerned about song structure. And like he said, his lyrics were like an afterthought. It was just like he was just Michael Stiping over it, he said. And just like throwing out random words and stuff. But the one thing he did say at a certain point is like the songs that he spent more time lyrically on were the ones that he ended up personally liking more himself. And so he realized like throughout his career as he was doing this that he should do more of that, like, you know, emotional writing real lyrics instead
something
of like,
he actually can engage with emotionally.
Yeah, and so like he has different things now where he'll say like he'll write, you know, something, and but he knows it's not finished, and so he will like leave that for a while until he can figure out a way to finish it, like lyrically kind of thing. So he does do that and doesn't just release it, like,
nice.
But you know, but yeah, he's sort of, you know, he's definitely like progressed out in the public with his music. And in his interviews, he's sort of describing this as well. And so it's kind of interesting to see where he's going now. It's like, it's more like he realizes that he wants to be a genuine artist, because he said like that's who he grew up listening to, was genuine artists. And he says for the future, he just wants to stay true to himself and not get swept away with like self-congratulation or anything like that. And focus on the emotion and the lyrics and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't think that's how he started, and a lot of his like earlier stuff is very rough in that regard. But he's like learning out in the open, and it's all there for us to listen to. Like, it's crazy. Yeah,
100%. No, I love what you just said. It really describes how you can see the growth. Yeah, it's just really cool to see an artist. You can, like, go through the discography and you can feel the difference. Yeah, and look up this guy. Read about him. You know, it's interesting, and I certainly got value from this band, which is why I wanted to bring it up on Roots to Grooves. And I think this was a valuable conversation, as it always is. And I think we always learn something new. Yeah. So very cool. That's Car Seat Headrest, guys. Will Toledo out of Seattle. I did look it up. They played in April 2022, so we missed it.
I think
they played
just a few months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So bummer, but go see them. Yeah. If you guys got any cool stories about Car Seat Headrest, or some lame stories, or if you want to say if you love it or if you hate it, or if you love me or if you hate me or Jay. Probably love Jay and hate me. That's how everyone says that.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
We hate your podcast from beginning to end. Yeah. We listen to every episode in its entirety.
Well, thanks for commenting. But anyway, hit us up at the email, Jay. That's your cue. That's your cue.
You gave me a cue. I was reading the title of the song. It threw me off.
If you got anything for me or Jay, hit us up at the email, Jay.
Roots to Grooves at signalradio.com. SIGNL radio.com.
The other night I cried while thinking of having sex with you. Not out of desire or shame, but some subconscious impulse to feel pain. I wiped my tears on my face and neck and the backs of my ears and said, now it's sweat. Now it's sweat. It's sweat now. Pleasure. bisexual and asexual and have sex however you like. But I don't care about hundreds of hypothetical people and their hypothetical sex deals. I care about me and my sex deal. What about my problems?
Roots to Grooves is a production of Signl Radio. For more music and independent culture, visit signalradio.com. That's signl radio.com.